Welcome to my sewing room. I am so happy to have as my guest today, Lana Bennett. Lana is a sewing consultant with the Singer Sewing Company, and she has brought some exciting projects to share with you. This is a wonderful lingerie bag or makeup bag done with all the fabulous, silk dupioni. But look at the wonderful things done in gold threads. We're having so much fun with the built-in embroidery stitches on today's machines. Now this is really something that I like. This is to be used on a mantle. Magnificent built-in embroidery on a wonderful purple cotton fabric, and I do love the color purple, on a wonderful color purple fabric and all the wonderful colors and leaves and stems, and this is to be placed right on your mantle. This is a really pretty pillow, and it says Sweet Dreams, and the techniques today are going to revolve around trapunto, shadow trapunto. And see this little puffy pillow part that says Sweet Dreams? That's sort of one of the ideas that we're going to share with you today. Oh my goodness, wait till you see this wall hanging. I'm just going to call this really, really beautiful. And the area, the beautiful built-in machine embroidery, but I want you to look at this area right in here. This is the stippling, which will be part of our machine trapunto, and the wonderful, beautiful color selection and the beautiful built-in embroidery stitches. We're just going to really have fun today. I have another beautiful machine embroidered project. Let me just hold up a little bit of this one. A beautiful tablecloth with a wonderful border that goes around it in red and green. I think this would be especially nice for the holiday season. One of my very favorite projects that Lana has brought with us today is this absolutely beautiful wall hanging. Those flowers are so pretty in pinks and blues and reds and yellows. Look at there, the tulips, and then we're going to move on down, and then there's some even little butterflies built in with the flowers. All of this embroidery was done with a wonderful built-in embroidery feature of today's wonderful sewing machines. And if you'll just come along with me, Lana and I together are going to share with you how to do some of these techniques. We are going to have so much fun with this trapunto embroidery technique. First of all, look at this large machine embroidery hoop. I'm going to put the stabilizer and the fabric into the hoop and then machine embroider with the built-in machine embroider this very happy purple camel. He even has a smiling face. Now then, the next step is to take this very thick batting, high loft batting, and either pin it or baste it behind this camel. Now then, let's come over to this stage. I'm going to thread the top of the sewing machine with a wash-away thread, and I'm going to put regular thread in the bobbin. Then I'm going to attach the free motion embroidery foot onto the machine and drop the feed dogs. At that point, I'm going to straight stitch along the outer edges of the embroidery or the applique design, depending on which one you did, and you can do it. But I love this happy camel myself. By the way, do you notice he's facing to the left on this picture and to the right on some of the pictures? That's when you use mirror image, you can have him facing either way. Now, after I've straight stitched around this happy smiling camel, I'm going to come to the back and trim away this thick batting so it will just be behind the actual appliqued camel. Now I'm going to come over here to this last little camel who once again is facing the other direction and pull it up to show you that I just have the batting now only behind the camel. He's been completely cleared away. And now then I'm going to ask my friend Lana Bennett to show you just a little bit more about how this really is done. It is now my pleasure to personally welcome my friend Lana Bennett, who is a sewing consultant with the Singer Sewing Company. Lana, welcome back to the show.
It's wonderful to be back, Martha.
Lana has some fabulous things to share with you, and I'm just going to turn it over to you, and let's look at all this wonderful magic.
Okay, what I've brought with me today is Embroidery Trapunto, and that's a mouthful to say, but everything on the market today seems to be three-dimensional, so that's what we've tried to do with our embroidery. The first step is to sew out your design, and this is an exceptionally large camel that we have here in our hoop, and you place your your stabilizer behind, and then put it in the hoop and embroider. Then when it's finished, you take it out and you place high loft batting underneath the fabric, and you take your stabilizer off, of course, and then you put your high loft batting on. Then you can either pin, like I've done with these large quilt pins, or hand baste it, whichever you're more comfortable with. Now what I've done with the machine to set up is to place the darning foot or free motion embroidery foot on the machine, and I've dropped the feed dogs. So I'm going to free motion stitch, straight stitch on the embroidery to create the trapunto effect. I've programmed in the straight stitch, and then you're just going to, I'm using a white thread, but what you may want to use is a wash away thread, because we're just doing temporary stitching at this point, just to hold it in the trapunto effect and the batting in place. So it's just temporary, and wash away thread works beautifully for that. So I've lowered my feed dogs, and now I'm going to start stitching right along the edge. And again, with the wash away stabilizer, you don't have to be real exact, but you do want to get real close to the edge or just inside the edge. And I'm going right down along the outline of my purple camel.
I love that purple camel.
It's nice and creative for children.
Maybe a child like me. I love purple camels.
Makes it more colorful and fun. All right, I'm going to stop at this point and take it out. Now there is a thread cutter on the machine, but with the the wash away thread, I'm going to just trim it out. But you just go the whole way around the design. So when you're finished, you can see the puffiness already starting to develop there. The next step then is to trim it away on the back. And I've started to trim here. And you can see we're just trimming right along the edge of where that stitching is. And you'll want to continue trimming the whole way around, and you can see you're just getting a puffy camel. So the final step would just be, you can see there, now when you stitch it down it's going to puff up even more, but you can see your wash away thread, and on the reverse side everything is trimmed away. So you just have your high loft batting on the camel, and the rest of the fabric is ready for the next step.
Well, I can't wait to see what the next step is, because I heard you say you used wash away thread.
Yes.
So there's going to have to be another stitching
We have to secure
step.
it.
Oh, Lana, thank you so much. And now let's go on to the next step, which will be a wonderful purple camel home decorating wall hanging. This is the most adorable project. It is a camel wall hanging. This adorable camel is done in shades of blue and pink, and his little smiley face. And by the way, I understand this is just one of the animals.
Yes.
On the big animal cart. It's so cute. And it has the most wonderful little border. Lana, I can see this as just being a wonderful gift for a new baby, or for a child, or for a birthday gift.
Yes, and it's fast and easy too, Monica.
You know, that's what everybody is looking for.
Yes.
And that's the fun of sewing, I think. It's just to be able to have all that creativity. Well, go ahead and show me how this is fast and easy. Okay.
I brought a few other animals with me. I have a colorful giraffe here that's also on the card, and he's so fun.
Cute.
And again, I've done the trapunto effect on the back, and he's nice and puffy, and we've trimmed it away with a wash away thread, just as we described before. The next step then is to cut some strips of fabric for the outer edge, the border that was on the camel, the finished product there. And I found this adorable fabric. I was so excited when I found this with the different colored animals, because if you noticed, my animals aren't true to their natural colors, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun. And I have an adorable little red and yellow penguin here. And I've stitched, just straight stitched, and I've used a 1/2 inch seam allowance to give me a little more room. The 1/4 inch sometimes is a little too scant to work with. So since it's just a very fast, easy project, I've used the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And it's just straight stitched down along there. Then you'll press that up, and then you'll just attach the 2 side pieces.
Seems easy enough so far.
So far. The next step is to then take some low loft batting. If I can pull this back, it's just a low loft batting to give it a nice puffy effect. And then the backing fabric, which again is this adorable print. You put those together, the batting is sandwiched in between, and now I have the penguin just pinned in place. You can hand baste again if you'd like to, or pinning is again fast and easy. Now what we're going to do is straight stitch along. What we had was the wash away thread. Now we're going to permanently stitch the applique down, or the embroidery. I have a dark thread in here. You can use a transparent thread. That's very forgiving. When it's invisible and transparent, if you miss a stitch or it jumps out, it's very forgiving. You don't see it. But today I'm going to use a dark thread so it's a little bit easier to see. Then you just straight stitch down along the edge of the design again, and this will give your permanent stitching. And again, as you stitch, that trapunto effect develops even more because you have the 3 layers and it's really making the center puff out.
Which is so adorable.
3-dimensional designs these days are so popular. Everything is 3-dimensional. Now, for the sake of time, I won't stitch the whole way around, but you want to stitch the whole way around and get the puffy effect.
And that's the permanent thread. So
That's the permanent thread.
This one will not come out. Oh,
After
right.
you do that, you may want to stop and just take a little spray bottle and spray along, because if you have the little transparent thread that's showing, the spray bottle will just dissolve it. So that will just instantly disappear, which is nice. The next step is the binding, and what I've done is just cut a strip and pressed under. Again, this is a fast, easy way. This is not cut on the bias. You can use a bias binding if you choose to, but again, since this is just straight strips, top and bottom, the bias is not necessary.
It's a lot faster to use a straight strip.
That's right. Then what you do is straight stitch it on, pull it around to the back, and then just pin it in place. And here you can do 2 different things. You can either straight stitch, stitch in the ditch type, the old-fashioned way, or you can use the blanket binding stitch, which is nice also. And I'm going to choose the blanket binding stitch because with children, you may want to have that blanket binding stitch just for a little extra security if they're pulling or using it.
Well, really just enjoying that little
Yes.
blanket. You could even do several squares and turn this into a little quilt too.
You
Wouldn't
could,
that be
yes.
cute?
Actually, what I was going to do is put buttons on the bottom and connect it with ribbon. So if they wanted to take it off and play with it, they could, and each individual square would be small enough for a child to handle.
How adorable. You're going to do the blanket stitch.
I'm going to do the blanket stitch, and this can be decorative as well as secure.
It really is pretty to do that blanket stitch. Although it isn't necessary, I think it adds just a nice little touch there.
It does. It adds a nice little decorative touch to it.
So cute.
And you can do that the whole way down. And again, I'll just stop. But it's very fast, very easy to do.
Now you were talking a little bit earlier about a quilting. If you wanted to really go ahead and make it quilting.
If you've got time, you
Okay.
can go ahead and add a little more decoration. I have just a sample here to show this, again in dark thread so you can see it. But this has an instant quilting stitch, which is wonderful. And the other exceptional thing about it is you can adjust the stitch length of this quilting stitch. So just by a touch of the button, again on the machine, you can increase the stitch length so you almost up to 4 millimeters. So it's almost like a hand-done quilting stitch.
You know, Lana, that was the first thing I was thinking about. That looks like hand quilting stitches. This is incredible. And you just touch the button, longer, shorter,
Right.
to make it exactly like you want to.
Tiny little stitches. There's so many of the templates that are available if you wanted to do the flower or the pineapple designs that are so popular. You can just follow the template and use the quilting stitch.
Oh, Lana, how exciting. You just don't know how much I appreciate. Are you going to show us a little bit on the quilting stitch?
I can do the quilting stitch a little bit if you'd like to see that.
Well, you know what, I don't know for sure that we have time now. That I was thinking, but we know that we would enjoy doing that quilting stitch, either following the giraffe outline or just more traditional, or stippling, either one.
You can continue to embellish it however you want.
Lana, thank you so very much once
my
again
pleasure.
for being here with us. And now I have a really beautiful doll dress to share with you. My doll, Joanna, is wearing an absolutely beautiful pink linen dress with white lace. The technique is lace weaving, or some people call it Celtic lace shaping. Look at this really precious little bodice that comes to the waist. Can you see how the laces go over and under? I want to share with you in just a few minutes how to do that. Don't you just love the little sleeves? The same treatment is on the sleeves. And look here once again, you can see that it makes a little diamond in the middle when the laces go over and under. The skirt is another just favorite part of this dress. Let me open it up here so you can see it. The diamonds have been shaped with the over and under lace weaving and zigzag down, and then there's just wonderful little mitering also on the skirt. Now this is very easy to do, although some of you are probably thinking, well, that is not easy. I promise you it's easy. Let me share with you how. First of all, I'm going to use a water erasable pen and draw my diamonds on the fabric. This is later on going to be the bodice of the dress. Then I will take my laces and lay them down right, I'll center them right on those lines I have drawn, and then I'll take another piece and go over, and then let me show you how I weave it a little bit, which is why we call it lace weaving. This lace goes under. Can you see that lace goes under at this point, and it comes over at this point. Then I've taken it under at this point, and over at this point, and then under, and so forth and so on, and now then I have the bodice all pinned down. Next comes stitching time. Now this is a real trick I'd like for you to watch real carefully. When my lace goes over, like it goes here, goes over, I'm going to keep on stitching. Keep on stitching. Then when it goes under as it does here, I'm going to stop stitching, and can you see how I just jumped under and over that? And that's just one little tiny strand of thread, which I'm going to break later. I jump over it and begin stitching again here. All right, now I'm going to stitch on down. Since the lace goes over, I'm going to keep on stitching, and I stop. Now let me show you what it looks like. After I have trimmed away from behind, and that's what you do to make this wonderful peekaboo, I have trimmed away from behind, and the stitching goes over, and it stops. And then I jump over here and stitch again down like that. That's what you do when you make that wonderful Celtic lace stitching. Now, let's make a lace diamond. Most of you have seen me do this before, but some of you might not have. Lace shaping is very easy to do. Before I start my lace shaping, I'm going to come in here, and as you can see, I have drawn a miter line there. I just simply went in the middle and drew a line. Let me come over here and draw another one. That's all you need to do. And then the top of this diamond is right here. So I'll come up here and draw another one. Now there's a reason for that. I'm going to use that for my lace shaping. To shape a diamond, I'm going to come in here, and by the way, I do use glass head pins. I'm going to put a pin at the bottom and a pin at that top of that little miter line I just drew. Then I'm going to shape the lace out here. I'm going to put a pin on the outside and a pin on the inside. Then I'm going to fold the lace back on itself, press it down, remove the inside pin, put it through 2 layers, and a perfect miter is folded in every time. Now then, let me share with you how we're going to do that Celtic lace shaping or over and under lace shaping. All right, now let's refresh our memory again. I have to make a miter here at this point, so I'm going to go pin on the outside, and I bet you remember a pin on the inside. Do you notice how I'm kind of laying these pins flat? That also helps. Let me pull the lace back on itself. Let's see if I can do this left-handed. Remove the inside pin, put it through 2 layers, and a perfect miter is folded in. All right, now I'm going to shape the next lace, letting the lace go over this piece. Then for the Celtic lace shaping, I will pick it up and let it come under that piece. Now once again, here we go. I'm going to miter, pin at the bottom, pin at the top. Now you tell me what I do next. Fold it back on itself, remove the top pin, and then I'm going to go over this lace, and you remember what we're going to do next? Under that piece of lace, and so forth and so on. Now then, I have, you know what, I think I'll go ahead and remove this a little bit and just show you. Let's just sew just a little bit. I'm going to take those pins out I just put in, and let's go over here, because all in the world you have to sew this is simply a zigzag stitch. You do not have to have a fancy machine at all. Now this is a very fancy machine, but please know that for heirloom sewing, you only have to have straight and zigzag. So I'm just going to zigzag along here. And if I wanted to use the entredot stitch on this machine with a wing needle, I could. Or if I wanted to use the pin stitch or the Madeira applique stitch with a wing needle, I could. But I can also simply zigzag the laces down and then move on over to the corner, turn the corner and move all the way around. And then I have a final piece I'm going to bring over here and share with you. Then after I do all of the zigzagging, I will come in behind and cut away the fabric from behind, thus making this wonderful over and under lace shaping or Celtic lace shaping. Now come along with me to my attic where I have a really beautiful antique garment to share with you. I always enjoy inviting you to my attic because some of my very, very special treasures I have collected for you to share in the attic. The little dress I have for you today is a very sweet and very simple dress, really. It has sort of maybe an early version of a raglan sleeve. Now, what I really want to share with you, though, is, of course, there was no elastic around the turn of the century. So how did this mother get her gathers in her sleeve? She simply put little pleats in across the sleeve until it got just the right fullness, and then did 3 rows of straight stitching to hold her gathers in. Isn't that a sweet technique? Now, there are 3 little tucks that come down the front of the dress, and a little bit of hand embroidery, and of course, you know, we're probably going to use machine embroidery. Now, I'm going to pull the dress up and show you this very wonderful technique on the bottom, which could certainly be recreated today. Let me pull this lace down a little bit. Can you see, first of all, that the skirt is a scalloped or a scalloped, whichever way you pronounce it, skirt. So there are the scallops or the scallops. Now look, there are more scallops on here also. This has been, it's a buttonhole stitch done by hand, but you know what we're going to use. Gathered lace has been attached with more scalloping, and believe it or not, that can be done on the sewing machine. Just put your scallop stitch on, your gathered lace, and I might add, very carefully stitch it. But isn't that a pretty technique for the bottom of the dress? Our Sewing from the Heart segment for this show comes from Patricia Petrowski in Woodland Hills, California. She writes, Dear Martha, volunteers from the Woodland Hills Women's Club participate in the Happy Hats for Kids project by decorating baseball caps with very humorous designs, as well as sewing and or knitting and crocheting hats. The hats are designed especially for children who have lost their hair from either treatment for cancer or from treatment for AIDS. And these hats are designed with the goal of making the children laugh. They are so funny, and we try to make them really happy hats, which of course is what the project is called. Last year, the club, and that is the Woodland Hills Women's Club, donated 495 hours to decorate 390 hats. The Woodland Hills Club also donated $1,125 toward the project. Sincerely yours, Patricia Petrowski. Pat, thank you so much for writing this letter and for sharing with us how your Women's Club is helping to bring happy hats to children who have had some pretty drastic treatment. You know, women, and I might add men also, all over the world, are using their sewing machines to sew for those less fortunate or for those in real crisis times in their lives. And so many exciting things are being done in volunteer sewing. And Pat, you and your wonderful ladies keep up the good work. I've had so much fun in my sewing room today. I've just enjoyed having our guest, and most importantly, I've enjoyed having you here with me. Won't you come back next time?